recently went to the Black Women in Food Summit for the third consecutive year, and I couldn't help but notice how much my business has grown. Instead of relying on sharing my Instagram page to give folks insight into what I do, I was able to direct them to my website. DiffWorks collaborated with me on designing a site that highlights all the services I offer in one place. I can send invoices, receive payments, create newsletters, and I have a professional, functional website for people and businesses to connect with the K in the Bay brand. So if you want to walk into your next networking event with the right tools to make marketing your business a little bit easier, schedule a consultation with DiffWorks today at staydiff.com. I'm Kahja Elliott, and I'm a food enthusiast. Bronx born and raised, ATL made, Bay Area becoming. And I talk to people about how they create community through food in the Bay and beyond. Welcome to the As Told By podcast. We're back this week with a new episode of the As Told By podcast, and I love that this podcast takes me to places near and far. I'm sitting on a beautiful mountaintop, Pritchard Hill, overlooking Napa County. This is the most beautiful, picturesque place I've been in a long time, but where else would I be talking to today's guest? Let me just run her bio down right quick. She is the executive director of the Association of African American Vintners. With over 20 years experience in media, communications, and events, she is also the founder of Uncorked and Cultured, a community-driven platform and media company focused on wine, wellness, culture, and adventure for BIPOC audiences around the world. Angela McCrae, welcome to the As Told By podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kahja. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
I love running down people's bios.
It's awkward sometimes to hear people do it.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Why? You've done all those things.
But sometimes you don't realize it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You're like, oh, I did that?
You've done many things. And whatever you've done it right, because it's landed you here in this gorgeous setting. So we've been talking about this for a while. First of all, let me start at the beginning. Congratulations on your recent win. You are a Black Women in Food Award winner, Game Changer.
Oh, yes. That's a huge deal for me because I don't think I've ever been awarded anything. So it's a pleasure. I'm so grateful and humbled. And to just think, we met at the very first Black Women in Food Summit in Washington, D.C. in 2023, and here we are.
How about it? And not only did we meet there, but it was so serendipitous. We were in the cafe just standing in line buying coffee, and you just happened to be the person standing in line in front of me. And we just started talking in the line, and, it's 2 years later. Here we
were talking to a lot of people in that line, wasn't we?
We were. I think Ashley Johnson was in that day. Ashley was in that line, too. And I'm like, okay, look, time has forwarded and here we are. So at the time I met you, I don't know if you had made the move yet, but I think you were in the time in life where you were going to leave New York and come to California to wine country. But let me just back it up a little bit further because you're not from New York originally. You're from DMV, you're from DC.
Maryland, yep. I grew up in Maryland, born in DC.
Okay. How did you what was the journey from DC to Harlem, which is, I think, where you were living when I met you?
Yes. I actually left DC after, a few years after college and moved to LA. And I was there for 11 years and then started working in the studio system, directing and producing films, working for the studio, doing anti-piracy. But I was doing my own indie films. I also worked with a music video and commercial director as well. And so I was really getting my chops when it just came to just the creative side, but still leaning into that corporate side by working at the studio I was working at. But I realized trying to move up that corporate ladder ain't for everybody. Even no matter how humble you are, no matter how much you're willing to sacrifice, sometimes doors just don't open up. And so that's when I really leaned into the independent film side of things so I can create my own pathway. But I took on a job with a documentary film company in Harlem that was working on a project around HBCUs. And so that was at the time I was working remotely in LA. But then an opportunity of an apartment in New York opened up, and so I just had to take it. I'm
Those
like,
don't come around often,
right? And then at first I was kind of on the fence about New York.
Why?
New York is one of those cities. It's a lot to handle. It's a lot to take in. Yeah. It could be stinky.
Yeah, this is
with
true.
the trash and everything, and the rats running around and stuff.
Shout out to the rats.
And the energy pulling you in all different directions. But I moved to New York literally 6 months before the pandemic, so it was
wow.
It was felt good at the time. I just turned 40. It was like my freedom 40. This is my new chapter. And then 6 months after that, after returning from a trip around Africa, we was in the pandemic. So
wow. So you didn't even really get like a New York summer before the pandemic hit.
More like a New York month.
Oh,
August.
Well,
2019. That was my summer.
Okay. So the pandemic finds you in New York recently, but you mentioned that you had just come back from Africa. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more because, things that happened during your time there are kind of the impetus that kind of set you on a trajectory to where you are now. But I know that Uncorked and Cultured was born in 2020 out of the pandemic. And, I mentioned in a previous episode that I love how I talk to all these people, and a lot of what they're doing now was born out of that time, right?
Yeah.
So talk about how the origins of Uncorked and Cultured came about during that time, because you come for film, you're working on an independent project, you move to New York, the pandemic hits. How does that turn into something related to wine?
A trip to Stellenbosch, South Africa. Living in LA, you are in close proximity to wine. However, it was always kind of like you figuring it out on your own, right? Even through trips to Santa Barbara or wherever, there was never wine education accessible or in my purview while I was living in LA for 11 years. So, but I did start drinking California, cab, right?
Yeah.
I started drinking a lot more Merlot. I started really transitioning from spirits to wine during my time in LA. So I think my first trip to wine country was to Santa Barbara.
Okay.
In 2014, I want to say. And it was phenomenal. It was 2014, 2015. And it was like a wine bike tour. So it was like a really immersive thing, but still no education, right? You just get your tasting and that's it. But when I went to Cape Town and I had a chance to sit into a Black woman-owned, tasting room and vineyard on her property called Seven Sisters in Stellenbosch, which is like the Napa Valley of South Africa. It was 12 beautiful Black women from America sitting there, like just full of energy. And we were like, oh my God, like it was 4 of us. So we just had this whole like homecoming situation, meeting people from Atlanta, from Philly, from DC that we never met, and found out through an interview that I had with the founder of that winery, the South African woman, that Black women in America was her number one consumer. So that meant she wasn't even able to sell her own wine in her own country because of the inequality, because of the lack of resources and access, even when there were programs and designations and, laws in place to try to help with equity. And here it is, 5 years later since that time that I was there, and still much hasn't been done to really make more equitable place. Because, South Africa's wine history is very dark.
Yes.
When you think about it, and especially with the indigenous, native, and Black people there. So that made me do 3 things. One, it made me want to tell the stories of people who were doing, that were really unheard, right, in the wine industry. So I, documented that interview. 2, it made me realize the power of Black women's, money. Like how, as Black women here in America, how we can literally create revenue, success, and scalability for a business in another country, all on the other side of the world. So, and our impact. And then the 3rd thing just made me realize the importance of how we need to connect to the diaspora in a real intentional way. Because I think being in America, like most Americans, we just think America is the best place and we just know what we know. And it's like ignorance is bliss.
Very sure of ourselves.
Yeah. Ignorance is bliss. And then when you go to other countries, especially like different ones, it's very humbling. But then you realize also how revered we are, but then also how connected we can be if we really just took a moment to just accept, be open, there is a cultural connection. There's a lot of similarities, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of lessons that we can learn from other people around the diaspora.
Okay. You mentioned Seven Sisters. It's so funny you mentioned that because that was the first South African brand that I drank. I love, they had a rosé Twina, I believe it was pronounced, that I loved. It was discontinued. Like they stopped producing.
And what do you remember the year that was?
I want to say this had to be like 2018 or 19.
So before the pandemic, yeah.
Yes, because I drank my last bottle during the pandemic and then found out that they were no longer in production. And I was like, man.
What? So, funny story about that. So they were big in 2015. They were here. They were in airlines. They were in Walmart. They were even in Whole Foods, I think, at one point.
Okay.
And it was because of a Black woman importer. She's actually being awarded also at the Black Women in Food. That's Helena Cuff.
Okay.
So Helena Cuff created Heritage brand. And that was pretty much her effort of really trying to, promote and bring success to Black women in South Africa that were making wine.
I love that. All the people whose hands were connected in it behind the scenes to bring the product where someone like me who really did not know a lot about wines, and I would argue still doesn't, but would come across that product.
Yeah.
A wine dealer put that in front of me. Shout out to Alicia over at Coco Noir.
Alicia Kidd.
Yes, which is how I found out about it. So, all these Black women's hands in the pot of how that made it to me as the ultimate consumer. So you go on this trip, you come back, and you are now laser focused on what your role in the wine industry could be. And you make the decision to leave Harlem and to come to an immersive wine program in Sonoma, I believe it was. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's where
Sonoma?
we started. Yep, that's where I started.
I believe it's pronounced the Verizon Project?
The Verizon Project.
Verizon Project. So I looked up a little bit about them, and they are billed, which I love this, they're billed as following the grape into the glass, which tells you everything you want to know about the program. So you got to be really deeply engaged in the A to Z process of wine from all sides. So talk a little bit more about what that project is, what your experience was in the program, and what you were most surprised to find that you enjoyed the most.
Okay. So the Verizon Project partnered with Silver Oak here in Napa. And it was interesting because I was the second cohort that was able to do the program. And I was the first to do it alone, to complete it alone. So for me, leaving Harlem, moving to Sonoma County, it was, at 45 years old, it was a challenge. I'm going to be honest with you. It was a challenge. Even though I lived in California before, it was, I think the most humbling thing was literally like, girl, everything's closed. Girl, ain't no Black people. Oh, you want to get your hair done, girl? Like, what? You want to find community. I don't know. Single 45-year-old Black woman with no kids in this new community in Sonoma, which is really farmland. It's very hard. And then the program was a 12-month rotational program. So that meant every 2 months, I was working with a new group of people, learning something new, and different schedules, different locations, the gamut. And still trying to find a home. Having to buy a car, right? Coming from New York. Having all my stuff shipped. It wasn't like I just put my life on pause in New York. I literally left New York and brought everything that I could and that I felt was necessary with me. So that meant selling everything, giving away stuff, saying goodbye.
Yeah.
And then coming here and it's like you have zero time for yourself, you don't have anybody that can relate to you to an extent. So that was the biggest challenge. But, the good thing about this experience was that I took a risk, and it allowed me to continuously being a student in life, continuously being curious, and being open to the possibilities of what it takes to really run and understand and be immersed in the wine industry. Before, Wine Business Monthly named me like 2023 wine leader of the year. And I felt like a fraud because I'm like, I never even worked in, like, I just worked at a wine shop in Harlem and did Uncorked and Cultured. And yeah, I did some virtual stuff, but I've never been working in a vineyard. You know, I never really knew what it took to like bring the bottle to the consumer. And so this was my chance to do that. And I started off in viticulture, literally running around a vineyard.
Okay.
Could you imagine?
I can
You
imagine.
see this, you're sitting at the vineyard. Could you imagine running around and having to go through every 3 or 5 rows of like a
I mean, this is so vast.
10
That's a
acre
big
property.
job. And it gets hot out here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a ton of sun hats and visors and stuff to keep you cool. But it was cute though. It was cute. Especially, you know, when I was in Russian River and doing berry sampling for berry analysis before harvest. Like that was cute because it was 7:00. You done by 9. You're back in the lab. But when I was out here for the first 2 months running in the vineyard, it was tough. But I did production. I did customer care with the customers. You know, you just really learn the impact a brand, a real, true wine brand can have on a customer, right? It's one thing to be like, oh, this is a cute label. It tastes good. That's one thing. But when you have a multi-generational brand that gets passed down generation to generation, that has been poured at every family moment, you know what I mean? Or, you know, it's connected to a memory, and hear from customers firsthand and where it brings them to tears.
Oh, really?
That's when I learned about brand power and brand presence. Then, you know, working in marketing, doing fun stuff like with, you know, the NBA Warriors, you know, the Golden State Warrior partnerships and, you know, doing digital ads and, you know, kind of flexing my little media background muscle. But the thing that surprised me the most was the wholesale department. Like, sales is not my forte.
Okay.
But I do like people and I like being authentic. So I think being out in the marketplace, having a chance to go to Hawaii and, you know, to some of the restaurants there and, you know, hotels there, and being able to like, you know, sell them and talk about the brand without even really selling them. It's like sometimes when you have a strong brand, it just speaks for itself and you just have to read the room, you know, and just know what the need is, what's missing, or just really share new information so they can get excited.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think the average person, and I count myself to be the average person, has any idea of all of the things that go in the back end. Many of us, you know, we see the end product, we see celebrities, right? That's the thing now where everyone has a wine label or a wine brand, but really having no idea about what it looks like to bring that to life, as they say, from grape to glass. Okay, you did it. And I was going to ask you this question, but you really kind of spoke to it about just the experience as it impacted your personal life going from someplace like Harlem to Sonoma. And I mean, Oakland is only like an hour and a half drive, but still, you know, it's not like you're coming down every day. So, you know, after you've been having these exhausting days or you're doing all these things, how did you start to, or like, what did you do to start to create routines for yourself, create places like a favorite restaurant, or did you find those things, or how long did it take for that part to at least start to come together?
I mean, I'm coming up on 2 years and I'm still looking for that, you know? So when I first moved here, the first 2 months, I was pretty much homeless. You know, I was living on a vineyard house for that first month that was provided by the company, which was awesome.
I came to visit you in that house.
You sure did.
Yes.
And then I moved to another vineyard house up in Mendocino County by myself, which was scary, but I was grateful because it was only 35 minutes from my job, and it was, you know, safe. It was just a lot of animals and power outages and internet outages, but you know, I'm like, I'm a black girl here by myself. Like, who's out in these woods, you know, because it's redwoods. It's like dark. But, you know, it was, I got through that, and it taught me solitude. It taught me, like, you know, I think the pandemic taught us a lot about solitude in some ways. Yeah. But being out in nature, it allows you to also do it in a peace. Okay. Like being here, how we're up here at the top of the vineyard and top of Pritchard Hill, and it's just peaceful. You don't hear anything except nature.
Right. I mean, we're sitting here. This door is open behind me to the outside, and I don't hear anything.
It's like a serenity that comes with it. That's like we're not used to.
Right.
We not used to.
Yeah.
Right. So then I was in Sonoma, and it was just a sleepy town. So now I'm in downtown Napa.
Okay.
So I'm a Napa girl now, and I'm starting to build out some routines.
Okay.
But I'm gonna be honest with you, Kahja, I'm not one for routines.
No, you like a spontaneous.
I'm more spontaneous. I need routine. The older you get, like, you need it. Mm-hmm. But I'm still figuring it out. But I do have a few favorite places to go and restaurants to check out that's on my rotation.
Okay. Places. Well, I mean, downtown Napa got a lot going on.
Oh, yeah. State Line Barbecue is one of my go-tos.
I have not been yet. I have to get over there.
Should we go to... Oh, they're closed today.
Okay.
Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Oh, she know the schedule, y'all. So you know she's going. Okay, I've got to, make it my business to get there the next time I come up here. I want to take us back, though, to Uncorked and Cultured, born in 2020. So for folks who may not be familiar, tell us a little bit more about what you do there, and specifically about the Sip Consciously directory.
So Uncorked and Cultured is a media company. It started off as a Facebook group. I was trying to sell wine, y'all. I got into wine as a wine ambassador during the pandemic. And so I wanted to build a community that liked wine so I could sell them wine, right? And educate them and take them on this wine journey of over 200 luxury wine brands or wines. And so what ended up happening is this group grew like to 800 in just the first 2 months. So I was like, okay, audience, cool. But then, George Floyd was murdered like a few weeks later. And I was doing, at the time, weekly Wednesday Facebook Lives in this group.
Okay.
And it was just literally with my friends or people who was ordering from me. We would just talk about the wine, talk about a theme. A lot of my friends are in the industry, so they might be filmmakers. I did one with some directors who did like the Michael Vick documentary and like the Stephon Marbury documentary. And we were just talking about sports documentaries because I think Michael Jordan's documentary just came out. So we were just like, these are the things to watch. One was a sommelier. Another one was just like a catering chef. And that was literally the week that George Floyd was murdered. Like it might have been the same day or like the next day. And I stopped and paused during the conversation, and I just was like, how are you feeling? Like, with everything that's happening, how are you feeling as a black man? And this is a guy who I went to high school with, so I'd known him for like decades. And I just gave him space, and I realized, okay, right now, this moment in history in America doesn't need to be focused on me trying to sell wine. Instead, this wine is a gateway into a really meaningful conversation and connection, and also keeping people inspired and motivated during this time of uncertainty. So from there, I kind of changed the trajectory of how I was doing these interviews to make it more aspirational.
Okay.
Right? So it was more about an aspirational lifestyle. So then I learned from that moment that I needed to make Uncorked and Cultured a media company that provided resources, content, articles, videos, events to really create that deep connection from the diaspora, right? Because I just got back from Africa. So really looking at it from a global perspective to bring communities together, intersecting wine, wellness, culture, and adventure, all with the intention of aspiration and connecting the diaspora.
And during a time where, more than anything, people were looking for community because we just could not do what we were accustomed to doing. When going to no wine bars, not having get-togethers at the house. So, it was a unique moment, one, to already be creating community in the midst of like this global event where we can't move around the way we're accustomed to. But then you have the social aspect of the things that started to happen added to that. So people so much more looking for a place to connect, not just to talk about those topics that you mentioned, but really, like you said, just to create space to be like,
yeah. I mean, I was hosting virtual tastings for corporate. I would do these happy hours with my friends, and then as soon as the world opened up in 2021, I brought 15 people here to Napa. It was my first time ever in Napa. And there was an opportunity for me to go to another wine region to do some video content with Lodi Appalachian Inclusion Collective, where that was my first time really seeing firsthand what happens at a winery in 2021, behind the scenes and stuff. And then I piggybacked that on with a trip to Napa. We had 15 people, about half of them was like from the East Bay or like Fresno area. And then the other half was from different places around the country. And we did like a Juneteenth Napa crawl. So, so it was supported by Napa Valley Vintners, the Association of African American Vintners, where I just became a member. And we went to so many Black-owned tasting rooms. We went to J. Moss. We went to Theopolis Vineyards. We went to Timpani. We went to Longevity out in Livermore. We also went to Press and got a chance to meet Darryl Bell before State Line. When he was Chef Darryl Bell was the executive chef at Press, got them their Michelin star. So I had a chance to meet him and do brunch with him. It was a phenomenal kind of life-changing experience. And it made me realize that people want to do this. But I also realized that people management is a challenge. So keeping people on task and on schedule is not for the faint of heart.
No, I always say I'm an IC to my heart, individual contributor, because managing people is very difficult. Adults want to do what they want to do.
Yeah, and you don't want to force it.
No, I get it. Gumbo Social is out to make gumbo America's national dish. Choose from 4 varieties, including their signature chicken and sausage gumbo, or try one of their mouth-watering po' boys stuffed with your choice of pork or shrimp topped with their famous social sauce. Y'all, they even have a jackfruit version. So if you're vegan or gluten-free, don't worry, Gumbo Social's got you too. Crafted with local ingredients and seasoned to perfection, and with a 4.8-star rating on Google with over 200 reviews, you know it's the real deal. Visit Gumbo Social at 5176 3rd Street in the Bayview neighborhood of San Francisco, Monday and Tuesday from 11 to 3 and Wednesday through Saturday from 11 to 8. Or find them most Saturdays at the Ferry Plaza Farmers Market from 8 to 2. They're also on your favorite delivery apps, and they offer catering. Use code POD25 for 10% off in-person orders. To learn more, check out gumbosocial.com or find them on Instagram at gumbosocial. You mentioned at that time becoming a member of AAAV, I'll call it, African American Association of Vintners. But you now sit on the board as their executive director.
Yeah, so I'm not on the board, but I am the executive director.
Oh, okay.
So I do get paid.
Okay.
A stipend. So you can't be a board member and get paid.
Okay. Thank you. I stand corrected. Thank you. Part of what you all do there is promoting scholarships for wine certifications. You create resourcing for supply chains. You're helping to fund emerging Black wine entrepreneurs. And I thought it was interesting because on its face, this all sounds like it's very demographically aligned, right? This is designed to kind of support a specific group of people. But talk about some of the ways where, even though these efforts are focused, it really helps elevate the wine industry as a whole.
Well said. I mean, our motto is we make wine inclusive. So even though we're the Association of African American Vintners, we have a diverse membership, and we want people to feel included and to also know that if they're allies and support us, we're allies and support them. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think that makes this, like when you think about the work that we've done, right? Scholarships, that's education. I mean, we have people from India. We have people from Canada, right? We have people from all over the world who's benefited from our scholarship program, which is huge. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've given out close to, I think, over 100 scholarships in the span of 3 years.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And it's all towards the WSET level 1, 2, and I think 3. We also gave out 2 scholarships to Sonoma State MBA students, $5,000 each. Our first recipient was a white woman.
Okay.
So we are inclusive. Now, my baby though is the, AAAV Wine Entrepreneur Grant. That was something that I really was passionate about, something that I developed and created, and I fundraised for specifically because I do want it to get into the hands of our Black wine entrepreneurs because they have such a disadvantage. And I think when you look at how does this help the larger industry, it helps bringing new people and new customers into the marketplace. That's the first thing, right? Because people who are intimidated by wine and they don't feel connected to it aren't going to buy it. Mm-hmm. But if they see somebody that looks like their cousin or that expresses and talks and shares insight about wine in a language and an approachability that they can connect with, then that makes them more apt. I mean, I had literally a situation here at the Napa Valley Wine Train where I was, like I wasn't even hosting. I was just a customer myself, but going in to support. And it was a group of beautiful Black women from Ohio. And one was like, what wine could I get? And the hostess wanted to help. Mm-hmm. She was really trying to be helpful, but the customer just didn't feel comfortable.
Connect.
Yeah. And so she deferred to me, knowing I didn't work there, but she knew that I was affiliated with the Black winemakers and she wanted to know. Right. So there's a cultural dynamic with all things. And there's an unconscious bias. But if you look at the, how wine trends are going now, mm-hmm. Wine sales are slowly declining because there's for one, there's a few things. One, younger people aren't drinking wine like other generations, right? So the Gen Zs, mm-hmm. they're just drinking less alcohol in general across the board. And if they do drink, they're leaning into like RTDs, ready to drink. Mm-hmm. So canned, pre-mixed seltzers. Then you got the boomers who's like the main wine drinker. Mm-hmm. And 25 of them are dying every week. Wow. Statistically. Or
that's not a great statistic.
Or, they have to drink the wine that they've been collecting for the past 20 years, right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or now they on meds and
they can't drink at all.
So this is just life cycle stuff we're talking about, right? And then you have the Gen X and the millennial mm-hmm. that are like, okay, this is our prime market. But these are also demographics that are very multicultural, and the world is going to keep getting multicultural. But the wine industry has not been targeting, speaking to, connecting, or engaging. So if you think about any Black community, and I'm sure anyone listening today can go to their local liquor store and probably can count 5 wines that are available. And they all probably have the same 5 wines in all their communities. Mm-hmm. And all 5 of them probably cost under $10.
Yep.
And all 5 of them probably sweet sugar bombs that nobody wants to drink.
You're not wrong.
Right? But that's on the one side of just general wine. And then on the other side, when you think about what they are spending a lot of money on, they're spending it on those big brands that are marketing to their community, mm-hmm. That rappers say in their songs, mm-hmm. that people see in their videos, that they see Black faces in the ads, and they're probably spending more than what it's actually worth, right? Because Black people, we over-index on luxury goods anyways.
Yes. And it leaves out this whole swath of people in the middle who really are producing, quality product. That's why I think it's so important what people like you do, Fern, Stroud, Jermaine Stone, because you speak the language. You speak the language and you can demystify and kind of, someone I know uses the phrase, put it on the ground where the chickens could get to it. Like you just...
That's the first time I heard that.
It was the first time I heard it too when they said it. But it made sense, right? Like you have to make it accessible to people, not just, is there a store near you where you could go get it? Well, that's great. But if I walk into a big box retailer, or even if I walk into a specialty bottle shop and I don't know the product, I don't know what I like, I don't know what the difference is between this, that, and the third. You're just kind of there and picking because the label looks pretty, right? You don't really have any indication about what you want or what you like.
Yeah. And I'll just say that when you think about how it's also, so I said one was bringing people into the marketplace, right, in a more authentic way. Mm-hmm. Another thing is the retailers want it. When you think about this year, pre-2025, uh-huh. supplier diversity was a huge effort. It was a huge mandate. It was something that most big, small, but primarily big, really focused on, right? And they wanted to. They were intentional about it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a government law. It was something that they chose to do and opt in on. And because of that, there's been a lot of requests, desires, and intention to do business with Black wine producers. And that's something that I've seen. That's something our organization, the Association of African American Vintners, have been able to help align and connect our members to those efforts with some of the big, huge hotel chains and retailers. And they like to spotlight it during Black History Month or through other campaigns to really let people know. And working in Harlem, I realized it ain't just Black people drinking Black people wine, Black owned wine. It's everybody. Because if it's good wine, it's good wine. And if it has a some type of social mission or social awareness to it, people want to invest in it even more.
Yeah, they want to get behind that. I mean, we're in an interesting time because, to state the obvious, you're moving around in an industry that, admittedly it has some ground to gain as far as representation. And, this is a time where, of course, the socio-political environment is super rocky. And then you're physically based where, the truth is it's just not tons of Black people here, right? Unfortunately. Do you feel like there's still as much receptivity to what you're doing now that we're removed from a lot of those moments in 2020 and 2021 that had like lit a fire under people and brought a lot of those sentiments about around inclusion?
You're asking if people are, if it's still a market for it?
Yeah, like are they still pushing for it like they were probably pushing for it around 2020 and 2021?
No, I mean, we started seeing declines in 2022, 2023.
That early?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of the commitments weren't met. I'm sure people from all industries can say that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was some intention, like Target. I think Target did a great job, getting people's products on the shelf in a scale. Honey Pot.
Yes.
McBride Sisters wine.
Yes.
There's other things that I'm probably just not thinking about right now, but I'm thinking about things that I know, even like home good stuff, right?
All the stuff from Ghetto Gastro, Tabitha Brown partnership. They had lots of products coming through there.
And they were making money. And so were the Black entrepreneurs. So they know. I mean, listen, diversity is good for business. Everybody knows that. If you know business, right? You want to get money from everybody, not just one group.
Right.
And so I think right now with this new administration and the whole anti-DEI movement is definitely having even more of an effect, because now these corporations, instead of really focusing on the consumer and understanding the consumer has the power, they're more concerned about the president that's bullying. And that unfortunately has cost them millions of dollars in a very short period of time for Target specifically. But I will say that, I don't know, I don't want to be too salacious or too, but if you know supply chain and CPG, consumer products and goods, or consumer packaged goods, you will know that the work that Target has done has been the most transformative, impactful work on a major big box retailer. To boycott Target to go to Costco, who doesn't have any Black, I mean, I don't know. Most Black owned businesses in CPG, consumer, don't even produce enough to get into Costco, right? Costco is a wholesaler. So that means even if they did, they ain't making no real money off of it. It's all based off the units. And Costco's business model is to wholesale. It's not to make small brands rich.
Yes.
So you got to look at that from a business standpoint. And people say buy direct from the retailer's website, but even that, not even the retailer's website, direct from the producer, from the maker, the artisan. But if you're a small Black business who wasn't manufacturing your own goods like Tabitha Brown, right? You're just doing deal partnerships. You can't all of a sudden just now go into business and start manufacturing. You're a fulfillment center now. Right. You can't just do that. And even if you were doing that, you know what I mean? You still are getting a lot of support from that retailer. You know what I mean? You're getting a lot of support from them, because they come with the resources, and now you can't take on that burden to fulfill your product if it wasn't already part of your pipeline. Right.
That's why I don't think it was as easy as people may have suggested that it was to, hey, we're just going to boycott. Well, sure, but that doesn't take into a lot of the considerations that are part of that, including the fact that those people's products that were already on the shelves are still there, right? And to boycott means
they're not making money off of it.
They're not making any money off of it.
I mean, it's not like Target said, we're canceling all these deals. I don't think that happened, right? I mean, I don't recall them saying we're canceling the Tabitha Brown stuff, we're canceling Honey Pot. They were just saying we got to rethink our strategy around DE&I, so we're going to step away from it, which so many companies are doing right now. They're just they saw what happened to Target, and they're just they're just saying
be easy,
right? They're just dancing around it a bit in a different way. So you'll start seeing I mean, let's just be honest with it. It's the second coming of affirmative action anyway. So it's not like it's something that hasn't had to be remixed.
We've been here before.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been here before.
Exactly.
And, it may not be the last time either, depending on how things go.
Yeah.
I see you over there enjoying this episode. Okay, do me a quick favor though. Stop for 2 seconds and go give the podcast a 5-star rating. Don't worry, we'll wait for you. Okay, back to the episode. One of the things that's standing out to me in this conversation, as I listen to you talk and, you kind of recount from, your time in LA and then how that turned, one thing turning into the next this is so much of an example of how your life can change. Like if you're willing to take a risk or take a bet on yourself, right? For somebody somewhere listening who is on the precipice of doing something very similar, specifically with something that they're passionate about, right? It's one thing to move for a job, but, to move to really fulfill a passion of yours, what would you say to them about managing risk and fear?
To manage risk and fear, I would say get out of your own way. Because all that risk and fear is all in your head. It's all a physiological response to insecurities, past experiences or disappointments, rejections or whatever, right? So, or just your mind coming up with these scenarios of what could happen. Mm-hmm. But if you get out of your own way and not allow those voices in your head or those assumptions or those doubt or whatever, and you just kind of just do it, just act no matter how you feel. It's just like when people say go to the gym. Those days when they say that you probably don't want to go to the gym the most is probably the day you need to go the most. It's like it's like that type of mentality where you just jump out there, do it, get out of your own way, mm-hmm. and be willing to fail forward. Because even if you do fail, it's a lesson. Mm-hmm. And you're going to just do it better the next time. How many of you guys, if you think about it, do everything perfect and learn something from it? I mean,
I learned a little something from doing things perfect, but not nearly as much as I learned from when shit goes completely left.
And you ain't never going to do that again.
No. Like, this is what we're not going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you do, eventually you'll learn. There's the hope. But,
right.
But I think, always knowing that, God is, if you're a spiritual person, like just knowing that sometimes things are bigger than you. And if you just take that one risk, it could change your life in ways you would have never imagined. Because I'm telling you, from moving to LA, being here, going to New York, none of that stuff was in my cards that I thought that was going to be my life. Like majority of the people and opportunities and circumstances that I've come across was never anything that I could have ever imagined or dreamt of or considered. But because I was always remained open, I've always remained showed up. So being in those rooms, like meeting you in line at, the Black Women in Food and just having a conversation and being open and pleasant and just, being willing, just created pathways for me to just learn, to grow, and to just have some dope ass experiences. Like I've lived sometimes if I talk about some of the stuff I've done, it doesn't even seem like it was real.
You literally are on the mountaintop. Like literally on the mountaintop having this conversation. So, the receipts are here. The receipts are all around us.
I had to take the mic off because I didn't want to laugh too hard. But no, it's just, and whenever I meet people, I try to be encouraging. You know what I mean? I try to remind them of their greatness because I just am around the way girl. I'm this average chick from around the way, mm-hmm. single mom. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Oldest, got 6 younger siblings. Trying to, I didn't have a silver spoon, or I didn't have a lot of the childhood experiences growing up that others have, because I had to be responsible for my siblings, mm-hmm. and So when I left, I was like, I know what my life is going to be like. It ain't going to be like this, but yeah. I'm going to be open. And mm-hmm. so I just was like, tetherless.
Yeah. And it makes you, like you said, almost, not afraid to move. In researching, I saw where last year you talked to the Press Democrat about the importance of physically being in the place where your goals are. Like, this is not, especially coming off the pandemic, like a lot of people doing remote work. This is not anything you could do remotely. Like, you had to physically pack up and come here. So would you say to people who maybe not only are thinking about, chasing their passion, but keeping in mind that might mean that you have to leave where you are and go somewhere else?
Oh, yes. Be willing. Don't be tetherless. Like, if you know you want to do something, do it and jump where the center of it is. Even if it's just for a year or two. You don't have to live the rest of your life there, because guess what? You can always go home. I think that was the perspective that really, when I was offered a job in LA, when I was still living in DC, I was making $40 an hour at 28 years old, working for Fox News Channel.
Mm-hmm. That's good money
in DC. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
$40 an hour. Then I get accepted to a job offer for $16 an hour in LA.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God. Like, all right. And so I was talking to one of my colleagues at Fox News, and she was like, girl, you better do that now. She was like, you can always come back. Like, Will, you're going to get a job. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You're going to be straight. Like, you got your foundation here. You got family here. You got, you'll be straight here. You better take this opportunity. And me and her wasn't even that close. But it was like it just
but
happened.
She spoke a word that day.
And that's another thing, right? Be willing. Listen, take them gems when God give it to you, no matter who it comes from. Mm-hmm. Sometimes homeless people have said some of the most profound things to me.
You like right on.
Yeah, I'd be like, ooh, okay, just right when you need it, and you don't even expect it.
Yeah.
So I'll always be, open and aware. But I'll tell you, like, just show up. But if you can't move right away, go to the conference, go to the events, volunteer. Volunteer was my jam in my 20s.
Okay, because you meet people volunteering.
Yeah, and it's free.
That too. That too.
You get free food sometimes too.
Go serve, and you might just get served in return.
Yes, that's the number one right there.
Yes.
Be of service.
Be of service. Well, listen, service has brought you all the way here. I am so glad that we met when we did. So I feel like I kind of got a front row seat, to all of these things that are happening for you. I love to see you being recognized and awarded. At the time this airs, we will have come and gone from Black Women in Food, but at the time we're recording, it will be next week when we go to Black Women in Food.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm so looking forward to this year's summit and to seeing you recognized with all of the amazing honorees. Before we close out, I'm going to ask you just a couple of fun wine-related questions.
Okay. I do want to say something. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So when we first met and we were at the Black Women in Food, literally I was kind of in that weird place. It was like kind of the start of like the rocky start of 2023 when it came to partnerships and collaborations that just went sour. And it really still has an impact on me to this day, right? But that was on a Saturday. The next day, I found out I got accepted to the Eurasian Project and Silver Oak Apprenticeship Program. So that was a very pivotal weekend in DC, because being around you ladies, like really fed me and inspired me in a moment where I was really dealing with like a partnership and a collaboration going down the toilet and felt like I was taken advantage of, and just, it just felt weird. I was just in a down place, but you guys kept me bright and just, I was just being fed. And so to be able to go back now as an awardee is just like, oh my God, you know what I mean? It's like, that. Just 2 years prior was just like a whole nother circumstance, but it also is that full circle moment for me, where literally I was, just found out I was getting accepted and I was going to be heading this way. And then here I am coming back, being here, living here, and now being a recipient of the Game Changer Award. So I'm super grateful for Nita and Amy for that, and for all the people who nominated and the judges who made sure that I was selected.
I love it. We were standing up in the room cheering when they call out names of people. You did that.
Thank you, boo.
You've come a
Thank
long
you.
way in a short period of time.
Thank you.
Yes, and doing amazing work to bring the masses along in the journey of Black wine's place in the industry
Yes.
and Black people's place in the industry.
Absolutely.
Yes. Tell people where they can find out more about Uncorked and Cultured and about Triple AV.
So Uncorked and Cultured, you can go to our website, uncorkedandcultured.com. That's uncorked and cultured.com. And if you want to learn more about the Association of African American Vintners, you can go to AAA, that's AAAVINTNERS.org. So that's AAAVintners.org. And if you're on Instagram, you could just say African American Vintners, and then that'll pull up our Instagram.
Pull you up.
And same with Uncorked and Cultured. Uncorked and Cultured is
Okay.
our handles.
I almost forgot about our fun question.
Yes, let's do
Look,
it.
all right, I gotta get back to that. Okay, you and I have talked about this recently.
Okay.
What is a red recommendation for someone like me who doesn't like reds?
Ooh.
Where's a good place to start?
A good place to start is something light and fruity.
Okay.
So if you don't like red wines, it's usually because of the tannins or the boldness. It's usually maybe even the pyrazines, the green kind of herby flavors you might not like, right? You know, and that tannin is what gives you that bitter kind of dryness in your mouth.
Yes.
So that's what you don't like.
Yes.
So you want something with light, soft tannins, like a Pinot Noir. That's really good from Sonoma,
Okay.
Sonoma Valley. Russian River specifically has some of the best Pinot Noirs. It's going to be super fruity. The tannins are going to be soft. So what that means that when you look at the wine, the more see-through it is, the lighter the tannins, because it's a softer, thinner grape skin.
Okay. You know, I'm gonna play this back and take down these recommendations. I told you, somebody told me to grow up and stop drinking white wine, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna try red. Okay.
I mean, you like what you like, you know, and there's more that I can tell you, like a Frappato from Italy or a Gamay from France. These are all light, similar to Pinot, but a little lighter.
Okay. Y'all, you heard it. I have my marching orders. That's my job for this summer, to find a red I like. Next question. Are you into this new trend of wine cocktails, or are you taking the more Puritan route? Like, just give me the wine.
You know, I'm trying to figure out, have I even had a wine cocktail? You know, I think Aperol Spritz, right? That would be considered a wine cocktail. It's a sparkling.
I guess. Yeah,
Prosecco.
these look far more like slushy and colorful, and they've got umbrellas and things in them. It looks like a true cocktail.
Okay, when I was in Walla Walla, Washington, I did have a wine slushy. And it's literally like one of those slushy machines, and they use wine. And it was pretty good. And when I'm trying to be cheap and conserving wine that I know I'm not going to drink, because it's just me, I'll put it in the freezer.
Okay.
And I'll take it out. And I like when it's halfway
Got some shards in there.
Yes, I have a little
Okay.
well wine, so it makes my own little homemade slushy. But as far as a proper cocktail, like, I don't know, are they putting like spirits in it?
I believe they are. There's a winery. I can't remember the name right off, but I followed them on Instagram. They have a whole program of wine cocktails. I need to find out who that is.
So that's interesting, to put wine with actual spirits. I would be open to trying it, but for me, I'm off the spirits. I'm on the
vino.
Yeah, I'm on the vino or a little spritz
Got it.
to give me refreshing.
Okay. And one last question. Is there a trend in the wine industry that you wish would go away?
A trend that I wish would go away?
Yes.
I don't even know if I know what the trends are. So let me think. Okay. I would say a trend that I want to go away from the wine industry is pretense, being pretentious or cocky or condescending or, elitist or exclusionary or assumptive and judgmental. So that's a lot, but I think it all falls into one type. Don't be a wine snob.
And don't count yourself out. If you don't know a lot about wine, go anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like wine snobs is what make people count themselves out.
Okay. Thinking you'll be judged and all those things you listed.
Yeah. I mean, let's just be real. When you look at a wine list in a restaurant, more than half of it is usually in a different language.
True.
French, Italian, Spanish, sometimes Greek. So it's like, give yourself grace, if somebody's being an asshole to you, call them out. But be humble and be authentic. And, I think usually most people appreciate that and want to be helpful.
Yes. Who cares if you pronounce it wrong? Get what you want.
Yeah.
Yes.
And tell them that I don't like it bitter. I don't like it sweet. Tell them what they like. If it's a sommelier, they should be able to be more coachable with you. But, if somebody is an asshole 9 times out of 10, they probably ain't that good to know that much about wine.
Because the good son want to make sure you get what you want.
Exactly. They probably fronting anyways.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much. I'm glad we finally got to sit down and do this. If you all want to keep up with me in between episodes, you can find me at kayinthebay.com or on Instagram at heykayinthebay. That has been this week's episode of the As Told By podcast from the mountaintop, might I add. I will not be on the mountaintop on the next episode, but it's been dope being up here to record. Thank you so much, Angela, for your time, and I'll see y'all on the next episode.